Hey guys, welcome back to another one of my tech videos. In this video, we're going to have a look over my Action Army AAP-01, and we're going to have a look at basically the actual spec for the build itself. It is a bit of a sleeper build. It is a little bit of a kind of an underspoken beast, if I'm honest with you. It absolutely rips, and I've got a combination of parts in here which works really, really well for it. Sometimes you can struggle getting AAP builds to work well, to hit right, to feed well. So this one does feed well. It shoots absolutely flat. It's absolutely brilliant for CQB. It's not going to replace my Kappas, but it is very, very close. So let's have a look through these and let's kind of like go through the build. What I'll do is I'll kind of take it semi-apart. I'm not going to take it all the way apart, but we'll just talk about some of the parts as we go through. So the most important one, well, not the most important one, the main driving one of this is this. This is the primary Gen 4, I believe, attached to the standard Action Army mag. The primaries are always one of the best feeding mag adapters I find. When I had my first AAP, I had a primary, I think it was the Gen 2, and it didn't feed too well, but they have made some adjustments and amendments, and this one is absolutely brilliant, and I love the CNC catch on there as well. And just a point of note as well, I do run a magwell on my AAP, and the primary Gen 4 fits absolutely fine. Look, there's even a tiny little gap there, so it fits absolutely fine. So super happy with that. So as we start going into the build, what I'll do is I'll kind of take it apart. We'll do the top half and we'll do the bottom half separately as well. So let's take her apart and we'll pop you down there. So as we're looking at the top half, we'll kick it off. It's a tan AAP. I bought this last Black Friday, so that was Black Friday of 2022 from Patrol Base. I believe it was £65 plus a bit of delivery. Absolute bargain for one of these. Even if you don't intend on modding it, you just swap the hammer out so that it doesn't, well, when it breaks, you're covered. That's a good performing pistol for less than £100, so very much welcome for that. So what have I done to mine? The inner barrel itself I've got in there is a PDI 6.01. It's 129mm in length, so it sits just inside there, and it too has the O-ring, so it kind of self-centers in the end there. Nice stainless steel barrel, keeps it nice and clean. This particular AAP has never shot gas. Even when I was testing it, before I got the primary adapter, I just tapped the mag with a wheel adapter, so it's never actually shot gas, which I quite like. So the stock booking, I did swap that out. The stock AAP bookings are pretty decent and they will hop a 4, but I actually put a TM booking in this one. They're a little bit softer and I just find that they perform well. I had one or two performing well in my Kappas, and being as on one of my Kappas I run an AAP barrel anyway, it just made sense to move that over. In the future, if I do need to make any changes out, I will probably end up running something like a Flamingo, or at the moment I'm just trialing a DP75, which again is very, very nice. So as we kind of move through the upper, I've got some notes to the side now so I don't go too far off on a tangent, but we will try and keep to what we've got on here. I've swapped the fibres. By default, I believe the fibres come green at the back, red at the front. I prefer green at the front, red at the back. So swap those over. I think they're cow or AIP fibres. It's just a case of swapping over and just lighting the end so that they don't fall out. Small touches make the difference. The bolt is a 5KU lightweight bolt. Now, it's not one of these kind of Swiss cheesed bolts. It is just kind of a stock looking bolt. However, it is a lot lighter than what the stock bolt is. And that means it's fast, and it also doesn't take a lot to get it moving. So the 5KU one was about £22, and I'm really happy with it. It's gone in, it's fitted well. It's not wearing particularly hard in any place particularly. It's absolutely fantastic. I'm really happy with this build. So the 5KU bolt is probably a little bit of the showpiece of that for me. So going forwards, the nozzle spring, as you can see there, it doesn't... the nozzle does move quite quickly there. It's a 300% Hadron Designs nozzle spring. And the reason for that is on these things, you cannot get a nozzle spring, kind of firm enough, fast enough. So go for the absolute very best you can. Hadron is the highest. It means the faster this thing starts moving, the better your chances of that thing moving and actually getting it feeding. So Hadron for that. Inside here, there are some kind of inside here, if you can see. might be able to see there. Look, 2 little stainless steel bolts in there. The stock ones of those are kind of like monkey metal. These are the Hadron stainless steel housing screws as well. Had to go with those because bling factor, really. I just really like them, and as I was ordering the nozzle spring, I just took them on the order just to build it up. So not necessarily needed, but they're quite nice. As we go through, the recoil spring on this bad boy is a 200% one from CTM. I did struggle a bit with recoil springs, and I've got a feeling, my notes tell me that it's a 200%. I've got a feeling it's actually a CNC TAC 140. Just to slow this down a bit. So generally speaking, when you have a lightweight bolt, you don't need a super high strength recoil because all the weight's gone, so it doesn't need it. A stock spring will do absolutely fine, but I am quite sure that I've got at least a 140, if not the CTM 200 in here. So I do run a short stroke on this as well, not that it's needed. I have one plastic 3D printed short stroke. It's about a mil or two, and it's just to take a little bit of the impact off this bolt as well. What else have we got? That's probably about it for the upper half. Yeah, kind of the rest of it is pretty much stock. The fire selectors and all that kind of gubbins is stock. The nozzle is the stock nozzle. So I do have actually inside here, under the actual kind of flute valve in there, I've got the cow spring, the nozzle valve spring in there. And the reason for that, the stock Action Army one is a little bit inconsistent, and you can get quite wavering FPS with that. You swap it out for the cow. It doesn't have to be cow one. I have used the high capper, the TM high capper spring in which comes stock in here before as well, and it just firms that up a little bit. So that's that I owe that to the consistency. So that's a bonus. That's about the upper half done. Everything else is stock on it. I do like some of these receivers which I'm seeing coming out, and some of the one-piece aluminium jobbies and things, but when I'm looking at them, it's like £100 for an upper receiver, of which I'm going to have a bolt which probably won't work very well, and I'm going to cause myself problems, and the whole gun is less than 100. So while they do look really good and I do really like them, I'm not going to invest in one. And then we kind of move on to the lower. So the lower I've kept really stock for the time being. I've got away with changing as little parts as I possibly can. We do have the 5KU magwell. I think that was only about £7 or £8. It bolts in like any other magwell does, and it's quite slim fitting. It's a really good alternative to the cow or the Action Army or the CTM stuff. And it's cheap as chips. All of the 5KU stuff is quite cheap in general, and if you can make it work, or if you've got a build where you're not going too leery with it, it's worth considering. So then as we move about, I do have the cow hammer in here. I didn't go for the full hammer set because I didn't need it. When I bought the pistol, I knew I would be going on HPA, so I did go for the actual hammer itself straight away. If I need to end up changing things in time as we go, then fair enough, I will do. Things like the swapping this kind of love hearty bit out for a bearing or something, I will do that as we go. Other parts I've got in here are a cow knocker lock and the spring that goes with it, because the spring is a little bit uprated. I do see a lot of people complaining about these knocker locks, saying that they're off spec and they don't fit very well, and what can happen is you can get full auto effect if this doesn't move fast enough. But to be fair, it's always worked brilliantly for me. Maybe I just landed on my feet, but yeah, give it a little bit of lube and it's absolutely fantastic. So that's the cow knocker lock. And then the hammer spring I've got in here is the 200% hammer spring. So the reason for that, I don't normally like changing the hammer spring, but what I did find was, so I've got my 140 or 200 recoil spring in here, a short stroke and a 300% nozzle spring. What I was finding was that I'd shoot and it would go, yep, okay, I've shot, and not load. And then I'd have to pull the trigger again and it would load. And then I'd pull the trigger and it would shoot, and then I'd pull the trigger and it would load. So there wasn't quite enough air just getting through. So upgraded the hammer spring, because what I didn't want to do is I didn't want to drop down that recoil spring. I was quite happy it was so close. It was really close. And then everything else in here was kind of about right where it needed to be. So the only thing I needed was a tiny bit more air going through it. Hammer spring, That is really taut. It is a 200% hammer spring in there. I put the 200 in by accident, to be fair. I did some reading and I bought the cow set, and with cow you get a 140 and a 200. And I thought I was putting the 140 in, and then I read a load of people who said the 140 is not actually much stronger than what the stock one is anyway. Blah, blah, blah. So it turns out I'd accidentally put the 200 in. The 200 is really strong, and what happens then is when you pull the trigger, the lightweight bolt does manage to get far enough back, because there is a lot of tension. Because it's a lightweight bolt, there's a lot of tension on there. I've got a feeling that is a 200 spring in there. So I've got what I consider a pretty rare build going on, in the fact that I have got a lightweight bolt in there, and it feeds, and I've got a pretty high recoil spring. A lot of the people that you see having problems with lightweight bolts end up going for like a stock recoil spring. They're not very happy because it does move fast, but it's not, it's not all upgraded. This kind of is. Future upgrade plans. The only thing I want to upgrade on this thing is the trigger. So when you're actually using it, and I will show you how slack the trigger is. So as a high kappa user, I'm really used to a nice tight trigger. So when you pull into it, the trigger, you can just feel it there. It's, you can feel the wall there, and then as you pull it through, bonk, it's there, which is fine. But that's a long way back there to go bonk, 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 bonk. So at some point I would like to get a trigger which kind of sits there about ready, and then when you pull it, it just stops, and then it resets to there. So whether that consists of finding a trigger I like. See, what I also like is I like the lines on this. It's quite, it's quite oval. We've got oval cutouts in here. The trigger guard is quite rounded. It's quite a rounded off gun. What I don't like is the triggers, which are just completely flat, because then when you end up sitting there like that, completely flat, and it just goes against the rest of the look of the gun for me. So if anyone were to do a CNC trigger which was bent round, like curved, like this, with an adjustment screw in there, cool, I'll buy one. I'll buy one tomorrow. I'll buy one the moment you tell me that you're bringing one out. But as far as stock trigger goes, it's okay, because what I find I do when I'm in a game is I'll rest my finger there on the brake, and as I'm shooting, I'll ding, 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 like that, rather than going all the way back and forwards. I will just kind of hold it there, kind of thing, and I still get the shots off with very little problem. So generally speaking, using this pistol, I use it indoors. It is absolutely exclusively HPA, and it's almost exclusively a indoor CQB kind of weapon. I don't think I'm ever going to want to take it outdoor. It probably could perform outdoor because we've got the hot rubber and everything in there, but shooting 2.5s, it only needs 80 psi, and I get a nice solid 1 joule with 2.5s out of that, so it's quite CQB friendly. It's not quite as low as a couple of the high kappas which I run, which are kind of a 300 equivalent with a 2. But this is about 328. But that's just, again, that's because it's not a TM. It is a kind of an alternative brand. It's an Action Army, so they don't have that 300 FPS limit. They'll do 1 joule in these. I'm quite happy with it at that as well. 80 psi is a really nice low number to keep your HPA system at. I'm not one of these guys who likes to run my HPA at 120 psi. If it was, yes, this bolt would absolutely fly backwards and forwards a lot better than what it is, but it's not. So yeah, and as for those who are wondering as well, I get really good feel into that nozzle. So yeah, that's my AAP. I'm really quite proud of it. Like I say, it's you don't come across many AAP builds which have had as little problems as what this has had. I've managed to fix those problems quite easily that I did have, the couple that have cropped up. And yeah, it's had some abuse from me already in the CQB, and I look forward to giving it a hell of a lot more. The only other thing I'll probably say is that when I am actually running it, I do run a brighter C tracer on here. I don't just leave it like that, and I certainly don't run it with nothing on the end. Tracer all the way, it's indoor, isn't it? Thank you very much, guys. If you found this video helpful, please do hit that like button, please do hit that subscribe button, and please do drop me a comment if you've got an AAP, if you have any problems, or if you have sold your AAPs and then bought them back and sold them and bought them back. This is my number 3, and I've got a feeling this is my 3rd time's the charm. Thank you very much, guys. I will catch you in the next one.